pounding the pulpit of ego-driven my way or the highway attitudes. But there are no free passes given either. Answers to questions are important, but equally important is the reasons and methods used to find the answer. The lack of contradiction is the final judge here on Feet to the Fire. Feet. Sunday evenings, 8 to 11 Eastern. Fire. How do you listen? www.feet2fire.com for more information.
The views expressed in the following show are of the host, the guest, and the callers. The content of the following show, its accuracy, authenticity, and the ramifications of the use or application of said content is the responsibility of those speaking and listening, not the broadcast medium.
All right, pow! We are back and we are live. Feet to the Fire. I'm your host, James Alfianchik, the Black Knight of Talk Radio. Working in the yard today. Put up a garden shed for Lucinda and her gardening tools. Hopped out of the shower and I used my hair. I can't do a thing with it. Anyway, here we are live. I guess things got a little bit, a little wild here, so we're going to go through some of the stories. I just noticed there were some riots in Seattle today. I'll get into this when we get to this, but this is really going to take some clear heads and clear minds to be able to read through all the gobbledygook that's going on, the pre-planned Bolshevik BS, and the application of a modern version of the Maoist culture revolution. That's what's going on. Trump's doing too good, so now they're bringing out the so-called riots. Now, there's plenty of knuckleheads to go around, so at the risk of being labeled as a white supremacist, which, of course, I'm sure if the liberals were ever, liberal media was ever to gaze my way, I would, but very important to understand that we're talking about equality in a real sense. So when you have somebody who happens to be happy about American history, or in specific white history, and they're proud to be white, it does not make them a white supremacist. Just like someone have a black history or Hispanic or, whatever, Italian, Russian, whatever history. You're not a supremacist until you say, yeah, these other guys are subhuman. They're not as good as us or whatever. We're better. You can even think you're better. It's like when you think that they're subhuman, I guess, then you're getting into the supremacists. And of course, it's got a problem where anybody who talks any ethnicity and calls for blacks only or whatever, no whites or all this stuff, that's okay because of years of oppression. And it's wrong. Obviously, it's wrong. This is part of the Bolshevik plan that's going on, and it's all a bunch of crap. And so, also, there are knuckleheads. There are white supremacists, which all it takes a couple of them to be blown up by the media. And we're at it now. We'll get into that, but a lot of people are talking about it, so I don't know how much, you want to get into it today amongst the stuff we're doing, but we will get to that. We got a new Less Visible commentary, and we also have Jim Shultz returning. My truck's in the shop getting fixed, and of course they couldn't fix it Saturday, so I'm off work Monday. And so I could do a later show today, so I've called up Jim, and he's available. So Jim Shultz is a psychic friend of mine. I don't like psychics. I think a lot of it is hooey. A lot of his ego, a lot of it is dark side, and some of it is getting information from higher sources. All of it is not infallible. And so, but Jim is a guy that I've known for years, and he's really best for one-on-one rather than like the whole world. So I'd like to have him on. We'll talk about stuff around the world, but if you want to send a question in or you can call on the phone line in the appropriate time, I'll mention it. You can ask a question, then we could, he can answer. I mean, he's going to answer it publicly, so, and you can also send me an email if you'd like, and I can arrange for him to talk in private if you would like to. Many people have liked what he did in the past, but again, it's usually a one-on-one thing. So that is the second hour. Less Visible will be somewhere between, I don't know if we're going to have him between this hour and that hour, or at the end. We usually wrap up with some comments from Les, so we'll see how that goes. So let me get to the news here. Let me go to the webpage. I want to get the appropriate screen capture so that it looks good. Let me see what this is. Okay. James Wood had a Twitter. And, it's funny. I don't particularly follow actors or musicians, for information because they're popular in their field doesn't mean that they have any information on there. But James Wood's pretty intelligent. He's pretty cut through. He's pretty sharp. So don't bring in any balloons around him. But he said something that was so. I've said this is so good. I just figured might as well quote him then. News organizations no longer have reporters on the ground. News is just opinion editorials now. Social media is the real news reportage. And boy, do we see that with this Charlotte thing. Holy cow, you got the mainstream news calling it white supremacist, Nazi, this and that, and there were twice as many of the Black Lives Matter / Antifa as the other ones. The police, I guess I'm getting into it now. The police, I have, while I'm talking about it, so you can't, all right, we got some links there. The police were there doing a good job breaking it apart, then all of a sudden they pulled back and kind of forced them all together, and that's when all the riot stuff broke out. And you do have knuckleheads, neo-Nazi knuckleheads, who are, hey, you're not going to get my country or whatever. So, I mean, that's the problem, is that you got knuckleheads all around. However, the Soros and all these folks behind the scenes, the Bolsheviks / Culture Revolution folks, are going to be using this stuff to cause trouble. We thought it was coming earlier in the year. Well, here it is. And so who knows how much of this stuff was planned on both sides to cause trouble. And now you have people rioting in Portland, and it's just Antifa. There's no white supremacists marching. But it's ridiculous. Anyway, I got some links up there. I'll put them on the feed. How do I do this? Down here before at the end. But Stefan Molyneux has a great analysis with Faith Goldie, who was actually there on the ground right in the middle when this stuff happens. And so they had a nice talk about it. Well, nice talk, but you know what I mean. I also put comments that Bill Still made on it. Also, there is a report about the actual person who drove into the people, killed one person and injured many. He is Nazi obsession, mental health. See, so you get these people, and it's not Trump. They're going to blame Trump like Trump's torquing it up with his stuff. That's not at all. I purposely watch the man's news conferences, and I listen to as much of his speeches as possible to hear it come out of there. And I don't know who they're listening to. Well, I do know. It's a Bolshevik culture revolution coup. They're doing this purposely. They're lying. They're not misrepresenting. They're not misunderstood. They're absolutely lying purposely to stir up trouble. They're yelling fire in a crowded theater, which is not protected by the First Amendment. So I put that information up there. As I get more, I'll put it along that thread on Facebook, on my Facebook. James Arthur Jancic is the Facebook. That is my actual one. There's a Feet to the Fire radio, but generally I just put up the show times and all. It's just too much for me to handle. And I got this other one I've been working on to try and take the load off of my personal one called Extreme. Let me see if I can go to it. Extreme Left Watch. And if you scroll down there, I put up a bunch of stuff. So that way I don't have to keep messing with my own personal feed. And that, I also noticed last week I forgot a bunch of links to talk about them. They were over there because I've been switching them around. So I'm going to have to revisit that to make sure. So we got that. And so it's very important that people keep cool heads. I mean, people who've known me for years, no matter what race, no, I'm not racist. I don't care. In fact, I don't even care about the... I mean, I want history. I want reality to be kept in place. So when you talk about the Civil War and all that and talk about past things, we know that the history is written by the victor and that it is not actual real facts 100%. So depending on who writes it, I mean, look how they're covering Trump. You would think if some time capsule would pick this up, they go, who is this guy, you know? So it's the way they do it. This is why we're doing real time now, and we're blessed to have all these social media and independent ways to communicate. Otherwise, you wouldn't know any of this stuff. I mean, they would be totally running the show. And speaking of independent media, YouTube has now been censoring. Now, I haven't personally had any censorship, but then again, I'm not out there going wild and being a provocateur, as they say. I'm just doing some logical lack of contradiction analysis. But the way I've been hit is not about the content of my show and what I'm saying. It's the content that I bring in the show. A clip from a movie talking about a point or a music video or song. So that's how I've been getting hassled. So I just cut that out. I'll have to figure other ways how to do it. I did, but, we'll see. So, but they're censoring them. First off, they're taking away the monetizing. You notice, if you ever see any commercials on the shows I do, it's because there's some content in there that's being hit with a copyright claim, so they're running commercials on it, allowing it to be there. So I guess I'm happy, but so I'm not even monetized here on this at all. So it's just to save the hassle, just to get the information out. I'm not trying to be, the next best thing or most famous thing or whatever. I just want to get information out and people share it, and I learn from people, and that's how we do it. So YouTube has been censoring. I'll get to the water later on because that's a lighter topic. There's some pretty pictures. I want to mention this too. Mozilla joins... Well, this is the title. Mozilla joins George Soros effects in launching a strike against fake news. Now, there's a little editorial being mixed in. It's true, I think, where Soros is behind a lot of this. But in other words, Mozilla is going to try to limit fake news, which I don't want anybody limiting the fake. I want to limit my own fake news. So I wanted to bring up about a browser that I've been using and working with. And it is called Brave. Brave.com, Brave.com. I have a link on the story here, reply to it. And it shows up somewhere as saying Chrome, but it's not. It's open source. So maybe that's just how maybe they have an open source something or other. Oh, my water, it's right here. But I've been using it, and it's a lot faster in how it does stuff. Firefox, because Firefox is an extremely large program, very RAM heavy, whereas this is a little bit tighter. So check it out, Brave.com. see how you like it. I think you can import your all your stuff from your other browsers, so you're not going to lose none. I like that for all you English scholars out there. You ain't going to lose nothing. Anyway, so that's why I bring up Brave. Well, let me see if I got the news stuff first, and I can double back. Oh, I'll just do this. There is a guy who paid extra money to build a home that generates its own electricity. And he's upset because he still has to pay tax. And he can't understand why he's generating his own electricity. Why would he have to pay tax on energy? And so I wrote this. I'm assuming the argument on the tax collector side is the tax is on power, not on who produces it. It's on power itself, which in most cases is generated off property by a third party. You become that, quote, third party generator, and thus the consumer of your generated power, which happens to be you, must still pay the tax. Of course, this is a good example of how tax is stuffed. But it's a tax on power. It's not a tax on consolidated ed, Con Ed, or ComEd, as ComEd is around here. Exelon is the parent company. It's not a tax on them. It's a tax on your use of power. And when you become the power company, you, the consumer, is still to pay it. Just like if you were to have an electric car, you would still need to pay road tax because you're still using the road. I mean, that makes a little more sense. Of course, the road tax, who knows where it actually goes. I mean, tax doesn't, I'd argue tax most of the time, but forgetting that part of the argument, a road tax, if you're having an electric car on the road, you're still road. Now, you are polluting. Well, you are polluting because batteries are very polluting, and when they make them and when they dispose of them, that's a whole other thing there. So that's something to think about. This guy probably paid a good penny to build his house to be self-generating. And now he's going to be paying tax. And you could sell the power back to the company. It's a law that says you could sell it back to the company. But I'm not sure how they pay it. They may just give you credit on future electricity, which is like, thanks. I'm making my own electricity and you're going to give me credit. So I don't know if they actually give you money. I've never met anybody personally who does it. And I did have a guy on who, I'll see if I can dig up the archives where the guy did build his own house, it generates his own electricity, but he does have to use some of the regular electricity depending upon the weather. That's the drawback with solar and wind energy. It depends on the weather. So when the weather's bad, either you don't have power or you're going to have to get it from traditional sources. Yeah, and Frank DeBrezeni, Frank D, as I call him, he's real good into this whole free energy, new energy, practical stuff, and he wrote a comment on it. Now, there is this article up that 24 times, there's a story that has 24 times citizen used guns to save lives in the last 6 years. But there has been work on, I quote it, it's in fact authentic academic work on gun use for self-defense shows that Americans in general, whether concealed permit holders or not, use guns for defense of themselves and others at least 760,000 times a year. So I'm going to wonder how many. Now, granted, the United States has got 300 million people. I'm going to go to France and see how many times have gun owners protected themselves. I was going to say zero because they're not allowed to own guns, but they're also smaller. But you know what I'm saying? This is the point. You won't hear this in the gun control arguments on the media and the left because they want guns out so they can come in and do whatever they want in some case. So I mean, it's so obvious that permitted. I mean, but people who have who aren't convicted felons and stuff are allowed to have guns. Whenever you're convicted of a major crime, you go to prison. But wait a minute. What happened to my constitutional freedom of movement? Well, you forfeited that by breaking the serious laws. So same applies to other rights you're limited in. if you're held, your child sex conviction, whatever, or sex, you'll have to then report to the police. You can't live by schools. You can't go to parks. Well, wait a minute, you're limiting myself. Yeah, no, you're limited yourself by getting nailed. So, but there's no question about this. The people, the lawful gun owners, don't walk around just shooting things. It's the people who are unlawful do that, and it's ridiculous arguments. Okay, a couple of book recommendations. Now, I've probably mentioned this before, but I don't know why it came up. I guess I was quoting from it to somebody. There's a good reference book. It's called The History of Christianity, the First 3,000 Years. Very good. It's by a British ecclesiastical historian, Darmaid MacCulloch. And it's a survey of Christianity from its earliest lineages. Because there are pre-Christ philosophy and traditions, what we call Christianity today, that go before Jesus. So it does a very good job. And it's nice the way I put it. It's a good reference book in the history of the Christian church outside of any domination, but not outside of belief. So either you get atheists who tear apart the whole idea of Christianity when they study ancient scripture and history, or you get people who are inside a church who are going to help along the stuff to fit into their doctrine and leave out other things. This is very good. This guy did a good job of being respectful and yet not getting sucked in any particular denomination. I got links to the book on Amazon. I listened to it on Audible, and I loved it so much that I went and got a used copy off Amazon for references. Very good book. Oh, speaking of another book, I've got a couple of books here. I am currently reading Audible, Understanding Trump by Newt Gingrich. Now, again, not being a political guy, when you go back into history, Newt Gingrich, you have the left media, well, he's this, he's that, or whatever. But he is pretty smart, and he does know. I got excuse me, I'm got something. He does know Trump. He studied him and knows him. And I tell you, I voted for Trump and I support him in general. But I understand how his mind works more after I don't know, about a third of the way through his book. So I don't know. I'd recommend it. I'd recommend the book for somebody who wants to. Now, if you're on the left or some kind of center, or you're kind of, it would be very helpful. If you're like, people who are on the left, hook, line, and sinker, it don't matter, if Jesus came down or aliens, if you want to get non-secular, if you want to get secular, to explain it, they wouldn't believe him anyway, because they just hate Trump. They just hate him. They hate him. They hate him. And it sounds to me like programming has been triggered to have that much of universal hate for someone who has done and said nothing like they said he did and said. It's amazing to me. All right, let me go on. Now, we've heard about this before, but it keeps getting more and more backup. It's not single point source. Started looking around, so I'm kind of interesting about it. This is in thenation.com. A new report raises big questions about last year's DNC hack. It wasn't a hack, but a leak. Now, I've mentioned this a couple weeks ago, so I'm going to be just quick on it. You can read the article. It is, the files were collected and, quote, downloaded onto some kind of a thumb drive or something like that, because the speed in the download is larger than possible going from the DNC server to, Russia or Romania or whoever, And even in the United States, it would be tough to do it at that speed as it was downloading it, as it was creating this file movement. And also, there's two copies of this stuff, one that was WikiLeaks leaked out and one that came out through Guccifer 2.0. And there's another story that I talked about a little bit last week where there's evidence that the Guccifer leak might have been somebody impersonating him. I mean, that's what he says. He said he didn't do it. He could be saying it to save his skin, or he could be saying it because it's true. And but there are some metadata in there that gives the impression that the download the Guccifer was done with a different header to make it look like it was Russians that took it. So, I mean, if people aren't into computers and aren't into all this stuff, it's going to sound a little confusing, whatever. But the idea is that what you do, it's just like in forensics. There's fingerprints. You leave a hair. You know, you got your footprint in the mud. You know, that type of stuff is left behind when you move files around, when you do things. There's evidence of how something was moved, when it was made, where it was made, the timestamp on it. Now, could that stuff be faked? Yeah, it could be faked. But all of that stuff and the way it is, it most likely hasn't been faked, because why would... I mean, you'd have to say the Russians broke in there, got it, downloaded it at a slower rate, went in and re-edited it and resaved it, rechanging all the tags and all the little things in there, including who originally owned the program that wrote the file, which they probably would have no knowledge of who it is. And so it's just too much to be totally phonied. It's like somebody coming by and putting a footprint, dropping a hair, fingerprint, taking. Is it possible that they can do these kind of things? But usually there's something to show to an expert that it's been done. So, see what this is. Time for deplorables to march on Washington. You see, the problem with this is, you have to excuse me, I'm on video here, and I'm going to... Imagine a Seinfeld episode when Gary itched his nose and his girlfriend at the time thought he picked it, and there was a big argument. Ridiculous stuff. All right. So yeah, it's time for a march on Washington. Well, this is where you get the setup. You get people to go march in for Trump, and you get known people to march for Trump, and then you throw in some knuckleheads, Nazi guys, and you have Antifa and Black Lives Matter, and you go, see, look at these white supremacists, look at the problem they call. But they don't call out Antifa. Antifa's by themselves doing this stuff over in Seattle. And they're going, well, that's because of the white supremacists in Charlottesville. So it's okay. I'm going to get mad at something I don't like and start burning stuff down, and that's okay. But it's not okay for the other side. Not that it should be. It should be no good for either. So when Trump mentioned his thing and said, like, no, I decry violence of all types on all sides. Oh, wait a minute. You said all sides. We want you to say those white supremacists, I'm against that. They want you to do this because they've got this narrative you got to play along with. And in fact, Gingrich did mention something. I also read Roger Stone's book, Making a President. Both said something that made me understand this, the liberal, the extreme left. They have an ideology they believe, like it's God, like it's a gospel. Now it's not spiritual. It's secular. But they believe it with that kind of fervence so that when they lie, cheat, steal, and do things wrong, it's okay for the higher good, because the people who oppose it are Neanderthal, wrong, hateful, whatever, so it's okay. And, of course, that's the narrative, and the people up on the top are all playing games and laughing at the whole thing. So it's to me, it's not anything you could win by having a discussion and having, oh, see, I didn't see that. Okay, I understand. No, you can't. It's an unwinnable thing. It's going to be done by forcing the rule of law on the non-law abiding. That's it. That's it. And it will cause more of the violence. And what I think the white nationalists or the Trump supporters, I don't know, whatever you want to call, they shouldn't go protest, because you're going to egg on this stuff. Now, they have a right to protest. I'm talking about using your head, not going, hey, look, I got a right, I should go out there. Yeah, you do. You got a right. Yeah, you're giving an opportunity for the powers that be to play a puzzle, chess pieces, and using you as pawns so they can put your faces on the names of all the rioting and say, you did it. So that's why I'm saying it should. It should. I wouldn't. I'm not there. I'm not marching. Besides, usually I got to work. But still, Ed Klein reports the DOJ reopened Hillary's email case and offers a plea deal, which allegedly she refused. Now, this is only coming from Ed Klein. He's got a history. I believe he was the editor of New Yorker at one point. So he's not like he's some guy, saying this. But it is only coming from him. So either he got a leak that's true or a leak that isn't. And but I put it up there for your... I wonder if I could play this. I think so. I think I can get away with this. Well, there is some BS is put out in long terms, but George Carlin was edited in between Bill Clinton when he did his deal with North Korea. I'll just put the link up, but you've probably seen it already. It's been all over the place. Bill Clinton made a deal with North Korea and gave him some light water reactors and stuff, which apparently was used to do other things. But there's more to that whole deal that fell through. And so even though North Korea abused it, there were some things that weren't done on the our side, let's say. But it is pretty funny, and it is something how these people helped this happen, and yet they're just waiting to blame this all on Trump. In fact, I was on somebody else's post, so I'm not going to get to it. Trump is doing the art of the deal in a world stage with Kim Jong-un, or whatever his name is, Kim. He's playing a game with him. He's doing this. And now there's high stakes, but it's the same principle. But what he's doing is not a hothead trying to start war. He doesn't want to do it. He wants to have peace. And I don't think, and Trump doesn't think, that Kim Jong-un will attack Guam, because it'll be the end of North Korea. Now, China doesn't want that either, because they don't like their neighbor there, and it'll be It'll be a terrible, and South Korea will get nailed in the process, because there's a lot of troops right on the border. So no one wants this, including, so to me it looks like there's positioning on a global stage, and Trump is doing the art of the deal technique. So I could say, well, I wouldn't do it if I was Trump in there. And I wouldn't. But I also didn't take $1 million stake and turn it into billions, and I also didn't win the presidency against all odds. So we'll just have to see. Very good read here. Now, I didn't read it. I got a condensed version of it via Gingrich in his book, Understanding Trump, but intellectual yet idiot. One of the things he explained about Trump is that you have people who go to school, they get doctor's degrees, PhD degrees, they get all these cross degrees, but they don't have real-world experience. An example would be sitting down and planning to build a shed or do the landscaping or whatever. You sit down and you plan it in your head and draw it out, and then go do it in the real world and look at all the things you got to change. Well, Trump is an entrepreneur who has been building skyscrapers and casinos and dealing with politics, dealing with unions, dealing with material, all this stuff in the real world. And so when it comes to the people in government, a lot of them never been in the real world working. They went to school, they went into government, and here they are 50 years later, never actually contributing in terms of actually doing something in the real world, which is why you have all these troubles in the plans and budgets, and because people don't know what they're doing. Well, Trump does when it comes to building, and that same kind of point, or he doesn't have to know what he needs to know until he needs to know it, and then he learns it very quickly, very fast, very hard, and he uses his innovative style with it. So, but it's a good idea that there's a lot of people who are very intelligent and yet are idiot, intellectual yet idiot. Might be a strong phrase, but it might be, accurate in some way. Yeah, there's a big hoopla going on, and I don't know what to say on this. McMaster, is supposedly working with Soros. This is what Jim Stone is saying. This is what been on InfoWars and other places. Cernovich, all the rest of them. And yet there's also supposed to be a deal that Drudge isn't going to post any of that stuff. That deal was supposed to, according to, I think it was Stone, that it was I think it was named now, Jared Kushner, who, is that right? Yeah, who went to Drudge and said, please don't print any of the McMaster controversy stuff that's going on. And he hasn't. Put it this way, I don't know if he actually did that's true, but he hasn't done it. So it's possible that's happening. I'm concerned Trump is over and over again saying, no, he's fine, he's a good guy and all this. So I don't know what to say. There's a split now going amongst the base. So I'll leave it at that. This is interesting. You know, of course, this voter fraud and all this stuff. They have 11 counties in California have more people on their voting register. I got to read that. More registered voters in their district than voting age adults in the county. And 1 out of the 11 was Republican. The rest were all Democrat. And the graphic, let me see if I can put the graphic up here. I'm going to have to go to the big screen. I don't like all these ads on these pages. I know they got to make money somehow, but you have here's the various 111, 109%, 111, 102, 105. So it's showing you that that's just one little thing. You know, that is evidence that, and it's very simple. You know how you fix this? Everyone has to re-register to vote across the entire country, and you got till the next election to do it. Or, you know, and that puts a big burden on people. Look, I got to drive over, 12, 14 hours a day, every day, and I got to figure a way to get it. So if somebody is economically depressed, they can figure a way to get it just as well. It's the same principle. I'm out, not home. They're home but can't get out. All it takes is one day in the next year to re-register to vote. You got to go get your license renewed. Of course, you don't have to have a license to vote, I understand. But it's something that can be easily done. If you re-register, you have to show proof of citizenship in some way. That's it. Rolls are cleaned. Some kind of a photo ID would be great. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not like they're tracking you. We already got tracks. We already got photo ID on I got a photo ID on my driver's license, on my firearm identification card. I have the various fingerprints that have to do with my hazmat rating, and I mean, so to find out that you're really who you are when you vote, the one thing that we have, the one input we have in this country, that's it. It's just the voting. That's all we have. You can write to your congressman, you're blue in the face. You can stand around with signs. But the vote is the only time we have an active action. Of course, they got frickin' Frack running for the vote. But this is where I think Trump is going to be energizing third party and challenges to the incumbents. All right, the last one. Okay, let me get over. I got to hurry up and get this done here. Well, I don't have to hurry up, but you know what I mean. Trying to see. Yeah, there's a fake picture of Trump with a neo-Nazi guy. It's been proved. This is where this police stuff comes in. After the police forced to unite the right to disperse into the crowds of Antifa, this person was attacked and thrown down and beaten with poles, and it has a webcam showing it all. YouTube. Yeah, this is interesting. Google and Facebook sponsoring protest of pro-life women's healthcare clinic. It gives free healthcare except abortion, and they're going to protest it. Well, where isn't there? Talk about free and choice. Talk about choice. You have to do it because they have to make you. Well, you know, there's my point of it: is they have to make you involved on the blood sacrifice. There, this guy's a knucklehead. He's the Democratic National Committee, the deputy chair, Ellison. Kim Jong-un is acting more responsibly than Trump. Really? Really? See, they say this stuff, and it's so ridiculous. It's so wrong. He can't be that stupid, so he's lying through his teeth. And that's the stuff that is so ridiculous. Yeah, here's Michael Moore to Trump. Resign and your kids won't be thrown in jail. Oh, gosh. That's good. There's a professor who said Trump must hang, and he's not returning to teach. He's still teaching. He'll be doing it online. I thought that was interesting. The Atlantic has a thing on the whitest music ever. Progressive rock is audacious, innovative, and awful. I don't know. Trump is capable of political assassinations just like Putin. This is Bill Maher, who's another one who's complete lying Bolshevik. Because he can't be that stupid. I mentioned this last time. I think we're caught up on that. Let me look quickly into tweets. Let me see. I'm looking in the chat room here so I don't miss anything. Pleasure to hear your show each week live. Thank you. James Wood understands number theory, only it doesn't understand it on the planet. He's a pretty intelligent guy. He's also... See, I think when you get really, really intelligent, you lose patience for stupidity. Now, the problem is that when you're really intelligent, your definition of stupidity is a little higher than most people's. So, when somebody is honest, earnest, and wants to know and is wrong, he might be ignorant to the, the level of intelligence, but, he's trying, or he or she is trying. So there's this idea where you get too smart, and then people start getting, what's the word? I don't know how to find my own tweets. Here we go. Show. Yeah, here's one. ACL confirms that police were given a stand-down order. This invited the violence in the city. This is in Virginia. Used to shut down a court-permitted protest. Had a permit from the court. It was canceled, or from the city. It was canceled. They went to federal court, got it redone. And this is the ACLU of Virginia. The clash between protesters and counter-protesters, police said, we will not intervene until given the command to do so. See, this is why this is a sculpted event. They've thrown kerosene on it and threw a match. Now, this is another good point. The people are talking about Facebook and Google as being more like utilities. Now, because Google and Facebook can now censor what you're doing. I can imagine the phone company canceling your service because they didn't like what you and your friends were talking about. Now, the only difference in that argument is that Facebook and Google is more public. It's a one-on-one conversation, or whoever else is in the conversation on the phone. Understanding Trump, that's the book. Now, I wrote this on Twitter. All Google has to do is add ideological preferences and avoidances to quote, protect the advertiser from unwanted associations, not demonetizing the whole thing. This is why it's a censorship it's a punishment. It's not trying to protect. Some advertisers apparently complain because they were showing up on alt-right websites. Now, most businesses I know want you to buy a product. They don't care what your political party is. So this was the excuse Google has done. And all I have to do is just configure what ideologies or otherwise that you don't want to be associated with. Simple. Done. But, of course, that's not really why they're doing it. Truth about North Korea. Yeah, raided by the FBI. Paul Manafort. Raided by the A1 family? No. Clinton Foundation? No. DNC offices? No. Offices? No. Debbie Wasserman Schultz? No. Hillary Clinton? No. Yeah, they raided Manafort. See, what they're trying to do, they don't got nothing. They don't got nothing. Is there any English scholars out there? English is a second language. I like that one. They don't got nothing. They do not have any evidence on any of the Russian stuff, and what they did have and came out with is so minuscule, it's nothing. So this is the goal, my opinion, but others have said it too since I thought about it. So the goal is to find somebody who's got something. I don't care what it is. Something. And then offer to give them immunity on that charge, which they will charge you to the fullest extent they possibly can of the law, and want you to turn around and dig up dirt on Trump. I'd lie about it, even make it up. But, this is what they're looking for. Manafort, to my knowledge, he reported income and he recorded working for a candidate in Ukraine about a year or so after he was supposed to have reported it, but it was still several years ago. So it wasn't like during the Trump campaign. That's what I understand. That's the one thing that technically he didn't do the deadline. So they can technically use that to try and turn him if they could find something else. See, what is this? Google, this category archive. I don't understand what that is. Looking in the chat room, I got to make sure. Oh, yeah, I was going to say this and I didn't. So, I do have a legacy chat. I don't have the links up clearly on the new website. Most people go into Google chat room because there's the show and there's the people, and they just do it that way. It's very simple. When you look at the show on Google, you see it, right? So, but there is a legacy chat that people can go to. You have to log in and you got to get a password and all this stuff because I had to keep out narrative wells. But I'll put the link. If you go to the audio, listen live, on that page, there's a link to it. If you click on it, and then you could save it. But I'll put it in a more reasonable position later. But I was going to mention that, and it got buried in my stack of stuff. Bitcoin. Okay, Bitcoin. Let me look at my little Bitcoin-y thing here. Get the current price. It's been doing very well. It's over $4,000, $4,065 at the moment. And it, getting buzzes. For those who bought it at, I remember I could kick myself. I had, of course, hindsight, right? I had a guy on. In fact, I'll see if I can find those articles, the interview. I don't remember to do that. I had a guy on who was talking all about cryptocurrency. Never heard of him before. I just heard about it when I had him on to talk about it. Man, Bitcoin was, under $1 at the time. You couldn't even go out and buy one. You had to find someone who had one and do a transaction to get it. There wasn't any way to buy it. And of course, imagine if you bought one for $1 and it said 4,073, just went up. I don't have that on. Maybe, do I have it on this side? I don't think I do. No. I got it on the wrong computer. So Imagine if you did that. Well, I mentioned that that's the new thing. People saying, I bought Bitcoin when it was $300. I bought Bitcoin with this, whatever. But right now at $4,000, and this is my opinion, this is what I'm doing. So, but at $4,000 right now, you could buy it, and you will, my opinion, will make tens to $100,000 on it. Because in my opinion, in this emerging world of blockchain cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin will be the T-bill of the world, and it's going to go huge. And you'll be able to buy lower denominational currencies. Ethereum is actually up pretty good too. It's actually up $200 since I almost bought them. So I waited a little longer. Still made about $100 on each coin at this point, because but Ethereum is going up there. But there's a bunch of other ones. Ripple, I'm being told, the whole bottom line is Bitcoin was totally made off so that nobody can fool with it. They're trying to come up with the Fed coin, which is supposed to be Federal Reserve. And this is a problem. Anything to do with the Fed, except for maybe FedEx, I want nothing to do with. So this is done pristine, and there's only 25 million Bitcoins, or 26 million max, mathematically max. Of course, you still have to find them in a complex equation that takes giant supercomputers, rooms full of them, floors of them, forever to find one. And that has to keep going because they got like another 10 million left, something like that. Plus, people, if you lose your passphrase, your key to it, it's gone. It's gone. And no one can find that key. No one can break the key. So there's a lot of Bitcoins that have been lost that way too. And imagine if you had somebody who died and willed you their goods and didn't specifically tell you, and here's a sheet of paper with a Bitcoin information printed out with one of those QR codes to reenact it into your system. What is this? I don't know. Throw it out. There you go. So the plan is, a lot of people are looking at it, is that it'll go up to anywhere between 10 to 100,000, and that'll be used. Some, McAfee is saying 500,000. I don't know. So the plan of some people are to write it up really high, pay off mortgages, and so, because by that time, your bank mortgage will accept Bitcoin. And then you can simply pay it off and no capital gains because it's a currency. They're talking about, people are trading this thing as a, what do you call it? They're like doing day trading. Well, in this case, it's like week trading because it takes time for the deal to go through. And there it goes up to 4,078, and then goes down to, they sell it, make their profit. Then it goes back down to, 3,700, and they buy it. Goes back up again to, maybe 4,300 and sell it. And that's what they've been doing. It takes time. That works, but now you got capital gains to deal with. And you got to fill out all those forms for the, what's it called? Not FICA, but there's a FISTA or something like that. So the real way to do this is get a hold of a coin and then spend it. Then there's no capital gain. And, there you go. So let me go into the chat room to make sure that I haven't missed some. All right, so I think, my whole point, Russia launches a $100 million Bitcoin mining operation. Now, what they're doing is they're not going to mine it in the hard way using computers. As I understood it, they found I'm going to have to click to the page. They're starting their own. Yeah, here we go. Let me open up the page. The Russian miner coin. So they're starting out their own cryptocurrency. Is doing an initial offering where investors can use units of Ethereum or Bitcoin to buy the new RMC tokens. These tokens will have rights to 18% of the revenue earned with the company's mining equipment. Oh, see, they are going to mine. Oh, it's a token. Okay, I understand now. Russia does want to come out with their own Bitcoin type thing. So they want you to buy into it using Bitcoin, and they will mine with these. Because I tell you, you need these supercomputers floors deep. How much is it in dollars now? Right now, it is $4,078 for one Bitcoin. Ask the chat room. I see. So, yeah, these new tokens will have rights to 18%. The problem I'm looking at is that Bitcoins are going up so high. So when you buy in with a Bitcoin, does your value go up or not? So, all right, I think I gotta start winding down here. Best thing to do is follow me on Twitter, JAJANCIK. So then you'll see the tweets. You go to Facebook, it's James Arthur Jancic. You also can find a left extremist watch, extremist left watch. That's where I'm trying to put all this stuff so I don't have to have my own personal feed get hammered with this. And then you also have Feet to the Fire Radio. Let me see what that is. It's just Feet to the Fire? I guess I should know this stuff, right? Feet to the Fire Radio. So those are the ways that you could follow this stuff, because I can't talk about all of it on there. But you can get my opinion here when I do the live show, because I can't respond to all of it. And the main website is feettothefireradio.com. You'll notice at the top, on the top bar, I keep telling people this because I'm getting asked about it. You can go to the original website, which is Feet to the Fire. It's feet2fire.com. If you go to past shows, there's a custom search box. You can put somebody in. Let me just see. What was it? What was that? See if I can come up with. Oh, yeah. That's going to be brutal because I started accepting Bitcoins. That's what I don't have up on the new site yet. Here it is. May 15th, 2011. I wonder if that's the show. I'll look for it. Can't see the guy's name now. He had a special handle. But probably that sounds about right. 2010. Oh, 2010. Well, at some point, yeah. But you type in whatever you want in there, and you can scan through the shows and download them. It's all free. I feel like I could think of a better way to do it right now. I'm letting this go. I'm going to try and copy this whole thing over onto the new web page. So we got that going. Yeah, it's over $4,000. And so back then when I did this interview, it was like, let's just say it was $1. It was even less than that, but so there you go. And there's people who, when they first started doing it, you can actually mine them on your computer, because in the beginning, finding the numeric solution to this equation was easier. As time goes on, it takes longer and longer to solve the equation because you got to go through all these numbers. So as you get on the backside of it, it takes a very long time. So this is why you need server farms. I mean, whole buildings all doing the same thing to try and find them. So if you can get a hold of one now, even at $4,000, if you got $4,000 jingling in your pocket, just buy it. You can download it. You can print it on a sheet of paper. Of course, don't lose the paper. Don't lose your passcode phrase, which generates your key, or it's like having a lottery ticket and losing it. No, I really had it. Really. Oh yeah, I want to do one more thing. I told Jim I might be a couple of minutes late. I'll get talking. There is one more thing I skipped over and I wanted to talk about. Let me go back to them, because I think it's kind of important, and It's distilled water. Now, there's a fallacy going around that distilled water removes healthy minerals from your body because it's so pure. It uses the osmosis project of higher concentration, lower concentration. This is the logic. So it'll move the stuff out of your body. The problem is, if you think about the water, once the water is pulled into your blood, it's now in your blood. Now you have H2O dispersed in your blood, along with all the other chemicals that are in there. So it's not like, there's other stuff in there as well. So, and your body it has a hard time of removing some of the gunk that's in the water, and even if you get the filters like I have. So it's just illogical. Now, I know James McKinney disagrees on this, and, he's a pretty smart guy. He wrote a fantastic weather book, which I agree with, but this is how I look at it. This is the way, when you actually think about how it works, once it's in your bloodstream, it's now, quote, contaminated what's in your bloodstream anyway. So what's good about distilled water is it doesn't bring in more junk, is what it comes down to. And if you want to get minerals, you can add your own minerals to it in a better way than just taking a chance what's in the ground. You can either put drops in there, or I have a tablet with probiotics that have the trace elements in it and so on. There are many ways that if you're really that worried about it, you can get the trace elements, but you can get it from food. I mean, if you have food that has, let's say it has iron oxide in it, you need iron in your body, it's going to be hard to digest that. But if it's chelated iron, it means a plant absorbed the iron and now put it in a biological form, no problem. Eat beans, you'll get iron, So it's really a fallacy, and it's very shocking. And I was shocked that when James talked about that, James McKinney, because, But what I do is I buy, if you watch this video, very interesting video, I really recommend it to show what's in it. It even shows with filtered water and with spring water and all these stuff, what they have in it, if it's really spring water. So it's a real good video. And what I do is I buy the bottled distilled water in BPA-free bottles. I run it through a silver impregnated Dalton filter. It's actually the ones James McKinney sells. And it's like a Berkey type of filter. And what that does is it removes any leach plastic that may have got in there, because plastic's a big molecule. And these filters can go down to a virus level, and they just can't get real small, like atoms. It can real small, so it filters out any plastic that may have leached in it. I run it through a little structuring system. I can have the guy on. I can get the link from it. It's a little plate that's been treated, and it does work because I did A/B comparisons. So and the structuring device is very important. For example, rain falling through the Earth's magnetic field. Usually, if you look at rain in a sunstorm, if it's not really raining real hard, the actual rain will come down in swirls. It's kind of cool when the sun hits it. You can kind of see that. And when it goes through the atmosphere, it is being structured by the magnetic field. So you can also freeze it to structure it. I mean, that's kind of a poor man's way to do it. But there are ways to structure the water. That's one problem with distilled water, is completely unstructured. So your body has to structure it in a way. So that would be the only negative in it. But I do have a little structuring device that does structure the water. And the taste, you could tell the difference between the both. And that's what I used to drink. I've been drinking it for years. And it's the best tasting water. I mean, that's what I got right here. I just drank the best tasting water. There's no taste. It's just like fresh. So I want to thank Calvin, who wrote me about Aqua Sana, because one of the things I haven't done yet is put a shower filter on. So he told me about that place, and I went and checked it out, and it's great. The They, I think, program Water for Life. So they send you a new filter every 6 months for it at a reduced rate than just simply buying it straight up. So I want to thank Kelvin for that. I took advantage of their buy one, get one. I don't know what I'm going to do the second one. But I got half off the first one and the other one free. I guess I could still use the filter. I don't know. I only have one shower. So that covers it all. We got it all. I got that in there. Another thing I wrote, I'll do it another time, but another thing I wrote about was microwave ovens. They're supposed to be real bad, and I went through a whole thing talking about microwaves versus infrared waves, which is what is used to cook. They're both forms of light. They both cook food. One does it faster than the other one. One can char it. The other one can't. It just turns it into a, I don't know, solid mass. So I don't have a problem with microwave as long as it doesn't leak. Obviously, there's a problem with microwaves. You don't want to stick your head in there. But let me call Jim because it's past time. Schultz. And let me call him. We're going to do it live. We're going to do it hot here, so got to make sure. Elvis has left the building.
Hello?
There he is. Okay, we're live, so don't go into any kind of a white supremacist slash swearing narrative that you normally do when you pick up the phone.
Okay, I promise.
Anyway, Jim Schultz is here live. We haven't talked in a little while, and I was looking at what was going on in the world, and I actually have a little time here today. I don't have to rush off to bed to go to work, and you came to mind, and thank you for taking my call. So, not too much clearance, not clearance, but what's the word? I didn't give you a lot of notice. Notice, that's it.
There you go. That works. Whatever. You just call me. I feel like Diana Ross. Call me whenever you need me. Blah, blah, blah.
And I'll be there. Yeah.
I'll be there. Right. Hey, I couldn't think of the other part of that, so thank you.
So what's shaking?
Well, there's... First of all, I'm really, really excited about the eclipse on the 21st. We need a major world shift. And people are just kind of, it's the eclipse. Some people are getting really involved with it. Some people are not getting involved with it. There's a lot of things that are weird with eclipses, and some of them are very much involved with nature itself. Animals, whether they're wild animals like deers and everything else, are going to be very confused by what happens. But even domesticated animals are quite thrown off by this, just like a lot of dogs are thrown off by fireworks, and they just get paranoid. Well, it's just a time that I feel, I don't think it has anything to do with global warming, but I do feel it'll be a shift into a positive energy flow, because we sure as hell has been bogged down with a lot of this faulty world that's been going on with conversations from all over the world. And we talked about North Korea months ago, but like I said, we've been playing with North Korea since, if you remember the TV show MASH, and that was built around what the North Koreans were doing back then, and that was in the 60s. So this has really been a major, the Korean War was actually in the 50s. So this has been a major a witch's cauldron. It's just been settling, basting or boiling, and all of a sudden he doesn't want to boil anymore. He wants to show off his strength. But what I get when I see all this from what we're given on the media, I'm looking at a country that has a lot of people, which I understand, But you look at these thousands and thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of individuals that are performing in lockstep for the emperor. And if you see these people, how many people are actually working for the government? And I see a country that has, I would say probably 70% of the people are working directly in connection with the government through military, through office, etc. And how does a country survive when there's only 25% of the people actually gainfully employed? That's very, very weird.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that we've played this game for a long, long time, but I do feel after the 21st, it's so weird and so strange that this would be a time that we'd have something like this. And I'm not running down to Southern Illinois so I can go, ooh, for 7 minutes or whatever, but I am very... to me, it's like a very, very strong full moon. And then a lot of your apprehensions, a lot of your problems, a lot of your significant ideas should be developed through at a time of a full moon. So it's time for change, time for growth. And I think that's good. But the one thing we're forgetting about, which has totally gotten off the two issues that has gotten off the main media is Venezuela and Mexico. We don't hear anything about Mexico other than we're going to build a wall, which we've never done. Well, we're going to make it a solar wall, so we'll get energy from it. Which
I want to mention that, Jim. The reason why you're not hearing about Venezuela is because Venezuela is a socialist, communist, dictator-run country for many years, and he died. And there's a new guy running the show, and it's all falling apart. And that is the system, for lack of a better word, that the left extremists, are trying to bring here. So it's a failed communist system, and they don't want to talk about it because they're bringing in a socialist. I mean, the left extremist side that you get from studying on the internet, getting the news, not filtered, not reported, is amazing. I started a whole Facebook page just putting up extremist left news, and it's the stuff you wouldn't. It's almost like it's fake. It's almost like it's fiction because you cannot believe that people are actually saying and doing these things, and it's not being covered. It's not being talked about. It's being hidden away because it is because mainstream America elected Trump on sensible principles, and this type of stuff just keeps the strength running for 2020, and so they don't talk about it. And every time an event happens like this white nationalist march, which has been labeled a white supremacist march, when they march and Antifa shows up and Black Lives Matter and they double the numbers, the cops pull out and allow them to riot, and then they put it on TV and say, wow, see, look, this is what Trump does. This is what he inspires. This is actual lying, real, planned, neo-Bolshevik, the culture revolution of Mao. This is what's going on right here. And the mainstream media, all the major media outlets are complicit in not reporting things that go against their narrative and making stuff up if it's not there that go with it.
I understand that completely, and it makes perfect sense because I see even there's a strong undertow of Bernie Sanders going to the youth of America, kids who are younger than millenniums. And he's got a phenomenal amount of support from those people. And it's like, okay, is that a good idea? You know, Perón down in Brazil, went to South America. Where was Perón? I'm trying to think. Argentina. He was after the kids constantly. And right now, Bernie's still pulling a heavy-duty amount of children. I mean, we're talking 4th, 5th, 6th graders are following Bernie Sanders. Where did that come from? How did that ever happen? And how in the heck did Bernie ever get to Congress in the first place and stay there all these years?
Yeah, well, the thing was that, of course, that was all fixed to get him out of there, which those crimes all have to be looked in, and they're trying to keep Trump rope-a-doping, fighting off this stuff, so he doesn't get around to investigating every time he's done stuff good. And there's so many things they've done good that they don't report. They just don't report it. They don't report it, and so no one knows it unless you really dig. But this is why there's a battle against the internet and censorship that's now going on YouTube, Facebook, on news, not on people calling people names, but on actual news that they call fake news because it's not in their narrative, or when someone points out problems with Antifa or Black Lives Matters, then they just call them a white supremacist racist and they block them. It's ridiculous. But it's serious. Exactly. I mean, this is an actual real revolution that is taking place, and there's various stages and steps along the way depending upon how the reaction. And when Trump won, it was a big FU in the face of the planners of this thing that went through. Obama was going to continue on with Clinton, and this is their reaction. Their reaction is they're reeling. It's like somebody getting a sucker punch in on someone who's a smug, thinks they're a champ, and they come over to sucker punch, and they're back on their heels, running on the ropes, and so on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're in a very, very tedious time.
Somebody asked in the chat room, and I'm starting to answer, but since you're here, they asked, what exactly does an eclipse do? And I wrote down that it's, from my understandings, that it's a type of a marker or an announcement. It's more like a messenger, though there is energy involved with it. And then he asked if is it good or bad? Does it say things good or bad? And I think it's both. I mean, because that energy can come in and do some destructive changes for the good. But you answer that, because I want to hear what you got to say.
Well, what I feel about it really is there's a new awakening when things. It's just like a very common. It's always darkest before the dawn. We're realizing that life is there's still a power source that floats this whole project. It's not something that just chance happenstance. And when we realize there's this tremendous power, this tremendous surge that can place one planet over the sun to cause total darkness, is a phenomenal amount of balance and strength. And I feel that it's just an opportunity to step back and say, wait a minute, there is more to life than this. And when we have this awareness, when we have the opportunity to focus on something of so much of nature, this is spectacular. You could do the same thing if you were watching a baby being born. You could do the same thing if you were watching a lightning strike. But this is something that's going to show the whole world that there's a higher power that is in solid control.
There's also something I want to mention that, there's two things. One, the only thing that I find really a nominal anomaly is that you have a moon that is, by its size and by its distance, will fit perfectly over the sun, blocking out the surface so you can see the corona and all that. What are the freaking odds of that just happening, right?
Yeah,
so,
it's phenomenal. That's it's one of the things that I like to call sublime, things that we cannot possibly explain, but we know they're there. And when you can't explain this whole situation, like I say, nature tides are going to be screwed up for a while because is it a high tide? Is it a low tide? What's going on here? And when you get down to the basic tides on the Gulf of Mexico, if there's a high tide and there's a full moon, the tide comes in a lot further than it does when there's not a full moon, or it's in a retrograde. And this, when you think about, even if you moved 1 mile of the Gulf of Mexico, an extra 5 feet inland, that's a phenomenal amount of strength.
Yeah.
It's sublime. Things you can only go, whoa, how the answer to that is whoa. And gives us an opportunity to get back to basics of life.
Now, I got to ask you before I forget. I got an email. Someone knew you were coming from my newsletter that went out earlier. And a while ago, I'm going to say something like 6-7 years ago, a longtime listener and his wife would listen to the show. She passed away from illness, and he asked about it on a show, and apparently he has spoke with you a couple of times on your own, and he just wanted to. He's feeling a bit melancholy, and he wanted to get something about his now wife who's passed on. Her name is Svetlana.
Mm-hmm.
And
first of all, what people have to do. There's a phenomenal book which was written by Teresa Caputo, which sounds a little funny that I say that's a phenomenal book, but her one of her best paragraphs is the realization that when we have a loss, we're going to go through a grieving process. The only way that we can survive a grieving process is to find happiness. And there has to be some form of happiness and grief to coexist. You're never going to forget the person who passed. You're never going to be totally engrossed in life again because there's something missing from your personal extension of yourself. But you have to come to a point where they coexist. So when you can make this adjustment, when you can start thinking about what I would tell him to do if he's listening tonight, or if he gets this on another tape, focus on 5 things. Maybe something that she really cooked very well. Maybe something a gift that she gave you for Christmas at one time. Maybe there was a great trip that you enjoyed together. Maybe it was just a trip to Wisconsin. It didn't have to, I'm not saying it has to be to Europe or anything like that, but there's just a place where there was an opportunity to focus and find 5 things. And once you find those 5 things to focus on, instead of focusing on her passing, you can increase those 5 things. If you can think of a Christmas gift that she got you, and then think, gee, well, what did I get her? And what did we get the children at that time? You expand those positives, and this will allow a major healing for you. You're never going to get rid of the grief. As a matter of fact, her book is called Good Grief, which is kind of a weird situation. But you'll never get rid of the grief, because the grief is part, as long as we're here, we're going to be dealing. There's something that wasn't before. But we can learn to find some happiness, and the happiness and the grief can coincide. And as the more happiness we think of about that individual person, the more they give us. They do communicate with us. It's very, very strong. They do work in situations that are quite surprising. There is no coincidence. A coincidence is God or our loved ones remaining anonymous. They just make things happen. When they make things happen, life becomes so much easier. And you just look at them and say, thank you, got that message. So we celebrate those little weird things, but it's very, very important. But I want to get a little bit more with Svetlana. Hang on one second. I don't know where the cat comes in. I don't know whether there was a cat or she liked cats or something about a cat. And this cat has, I think it's it's just, there's an intensity about a cat. Now, whether it was her cat or whether it's just a cat that she ended up feeding like a feral cat or whatever, there was something about a cat with her. And right now, the cat energy is very, very connected to hers. And so whenever, if he still has that, if he still has a cat, if he doesn't have a cat, it can even be something like in a television commercial that reminds him of her. And when that happens, that's one of those sublime things, and you say, whoa, that's cool. And that's how we get through grief.
Okay. All right. Another question, actually, coming from Lucinda.
Okay.
Now, we have a new dog. I think I told you about that. It's a Jack Russell Fox Rat Terrier mix. Very, very active.
Very, very active.
But at times, what she feels that there is some entities interfering in the house. I mean, things going wrong in the house, things breaking, the dog's acting up. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you want to extend it out to me at work, there's a lot of trouble at work, but she thinks that there is, some ne'er-do-wells going on there. I did a prayer meditation where I visited a divine bell jar, so to speak, put over the house, and I envisioned, and this stuff, that's what I was starting to do, my own envisioning, and then my own vision took over on its own, and there was an appearance of, I don't know how many, 8 angels that were like in not medieval, but like they had probably maybe Roman type of armor with a flaming sword and shield, very bright light, and they were stationed around the area, sort of like outside of where I had envisioned this bell jar. Which, when this stuff happens on its own, it's cool, but it's also kind of startling. It's like, whoa, it wasn't like I planned that. I planned the bell jar scenario, and then this pops up, and I felt at that moment, I actually felt relief. So I mean, I don't know, and I keep looking and kind of visualizing that, but I wanted to ask you. You've caught, there was one before, you caught it, you were right on the money, when her deceased mother, who was a very evil person, was coming by, and I did a blessing in the house and did everything, and it went away. So it's a different house, but I'm just curious if you can pick up anything so I could tell her and act if I need to.
What's the little dog's name?
Well, it's I just mentioned it because the dog sometimes gets a little, but it's 6 months old. It's Molly. Mm-hmm. But this happened before. Okay. This has been going on before the dog, but it seems to be more problematic. Right now, she's not feeling well, and she's got like a flu or something, and lost weight. Well, she doesn't have any kind of weight to lose. Room to lose weight.
Yeah, right. First of all, the Molly situation is they are a conduit for energies, and they do sometimes attract or they do dispel energies from being around. Now, this little one, she's only 6 months old, hasn't deciphered whether the energies that are running around are good or bad. So she doesn't know whether to growl or she doesn't know whether to play. So she's a little bit confused with that. But the big thing is with terriers, they have to have a job. They have to have a job. And and I don't care whether it's a Boston Terrier or whether it's a Jack Russell or whether it's a whatever. They have to have a job. So how we give a dog a job like that, I would give them a certain time, maybe 2 minutes in the morning I start out 2 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes in the afternoon, 2 minutes in the evening, and have her sit where she can see what's going on outside. So she can see people moving, she can see cars, where she can see
she jumps up into the window and into the front door. She's leaps like a goat across all the furniture. Mm-hmm. She's got the short. She's a short leg, Jack Russell shorty, I guess they call him. And you could see the Russell. She got the tall ears like a rat terrier. Her face isn't as pointy as a rat terrier, but it's also not as. It's still more pointy than a regular Jack would be.
Mm-hmm. But so what I want you to do is you place the dog in the window for like 2 minutes. You kind of stay there with them and let they will focus out the window pretty short period of time. Then you take the dog away from the window and you give them a little treat and say, good job, you did a good job. And once they do that, all of a sudden they'll find that their job is the right place to go to work, the right place to do it. All you have to do is observe what's going on outside. And it could be the mailman, it could be a truck going by, or whatever, school buses now. It'll be a good thing for her to do, is to observe school buses. Once they get a job, these energies that are perplexing her they will focus on their job, not these other energies. The energies that have been around, we talked about this before. If you're really feeling negativity, kosher salt. It's very, very helpful if you put it at the doorway, at any place where there's an entrance. And just a couple little tabs of it, not a whole lot of stuff, but you don't want to ruin your grass and stuff. But if you just put a couple little pebbles down, it'll block that negative energy, and especially because the dog comes in and out from the outside from these entrances. So we don't want them coming in and out with that. And once energies know that they can't attach themselves, negative energies, they're going to go someplace else. And believe me, there's a lot of people who love to be attached to negative energy. But if you're trying to get rid of that, that does make a huge difference. And I would sit down next to it for 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, good job. Give her a little treat and be on your way. Put her back at that place. Make her stay there in the afternoon. And before you know it, she'll just go up there all the time and be very content doing her job, watching for people around the neighborhood. And as far as negativity right now, I think you did a good job with the angel blessing, with the angel connection. And right now, Lucinda is in a situation where this sounds, excuse me for asking, but how often does she shower or bathe?
Often. Anywhere from 1 to 3 times a day.
That's a little, once a day is good, 3 times is a little
Depends
bit
if she goes outside,
over.
cuts the grass, then she'll shower.
Oh, okay. If she's done something to shower, that makes sense.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So I want her to make sure that it's going through a cleansing process of showering is so simple, and when none of us do it, you rinse yourself off, you turn off the water, you just have it running where you aren't getting wet, and you soap yourself down, and you watch the soap come off you and go down the drain, and understanding that any negative residual attachment that you received is now gone. Now, if you've been in, I was just doing an event, and I felt awful. I went past a dead skunk. Now, it had been dead for a while, but I felt that odor in my nose for the longest time, and I was thinking, oh, do I smell like a skunk? I'm checking myself, checking my clothes. No, I couldn't do it, but it was in my nostrils. And so actually what I ended up doing was doing like a one of those pots, I forgot, nitty pot thing. I did it with just water and cleanse my nostrils, and I was okay. But when you realize that an odor that you just passed could get into your nasal passages and stay there, and you're still drinking, you're still driving and breathing for an hour or two. This is amazing that can stay that long. And I unfortunately, hang on one second. Lucinda needs to really connect with this little dog a lot more than she has, because that is a gift of unconditional love. And right now she's trying to block unconditional love from coming into her life. So she needs to be very careful with that. So she needs to, if she's laying down, have the dog lay down with her.
No, but actually, I want to say that the one thing that she really does is, I don't know, play bond with the animal. I mean, she's trying to train it and not, because the one will fight with our Jack Russell poodle, who is 13, and he wants to play and fight all the time, but the dog is older and it gets a little crazy. Mm-hmm. She's trying to train the dog, what to do, and actually some of it works, but sometimes she just gets overwhelmed with craziness. But I would say that if they'll sit toward the end of the night, the dog calms down, they'll sit in her lap and pet her. I mean, she's really all over the dog. But in the daytime, especially the morning, the dog is pretty wild. Now, unfortunately, people say, well, hey, you gotta take them out and run around the backyard. Well, we got a perfect yard for that, except we have all these critters coming in and out. All kinds of raccoons, possums, even with the big fences. The raccoons climb over the fences, the possums dig underneath. They're underneath the back porch, and she's afraid of disease. And, that fear of the disease is enough to stop that from happening.
Right.
People are probably really excited about this conversation.
Well, no, we all have.
Can't you call him
like
someday
that,
on your own? But this is it.
No, I would definitely. She needs to. In a situation like that, she needs to circle the outside area first, just to look around. And most of the critters aren't going to come out when you're there, so she needs to know that her backyard is secured, and let the dog go out there for a while and do what it wants to do, or run around and stuff like that. As far as we're dealing with the older dog don't. They respond to a point, but when they're done, they're done. And it may take a little growling or something like that, and it'll change the little one's direction. And I would definitely, what I would do, and again, keep little, what's a great treat for dogs is like some of the cereal stuff, like Cheerios or something like that. You're not getting a lot of crap. You're just getting the one Cheerios, and they love it. And
actually, she's got some treat from I can't think of the name of the company. It's all pure stuff, and they're about the size of a Cheerio, only it's filled in.
Yeah, that's perfect. And you just give them one. Don't give them more than one. Just give them one. Give her one. And when she gets that idea, well, if I do this, I'm doing good, and then I get a treat. So she needs to really connect, because this little one's going to bring her open. And right now, it's there's so much. Well, there's so much damn negativity anywhere that it's hard to find some solace or some happiness. And we're really okay, but it's just a little scary. So for someone who has a need to be, someone who has a need to be loved and cared for by another thing other than a person, the puppy is the exact perfect thing. Puppies are going to be puppies for the first 9 months. After 9 months, they kind of settle down. Some dogs, like Goldens and stuff, they never settle down, but they're good dogs. They just don't like to grow up. Irish setters are the same thing. But this little one's has come to you for a reason, and it is to help her. And
I will say there is something about the reason, because she was looking for dogs and we couldn't find any, and then the prices were like, what? The last time I got a dog, people were giving them away. But this one, somebody was coming to pick it up, and I couldn't get there, till after work. And they came to pick it up, and they decided to take a different dog. And when and the dog was a little bit skittish. She was about 4 months old. She was a little bit almost currish, in the cage. But as soon as she got in her arms on the way home, it was like a done deal.
Yeah. So this is very good. It's there for a purpose, and I think part of the purpose too is for her to bring her out, to make her go out in the yard and be outside, for her to be outside, not the dog. And this will make a big difference. Otherwise, she would just kind of tower down into her own little darkness for a little while, and she needs to be out there. It's really very, very powerful for that.
All right. Well, now let me ask you something here. And now that everybody's tuned out, but we're apparently on the brink of nuclear war, and I think it's a lot of saber rattling, and Trump's doing the art of the deal. But nonetheless, it could happen. And so, what are you thinking about what's going on with North Korea?
I really feel that there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of saber rattling and stuff like that. I really don't feel like it. It's hard to say with businesses and things like that, because the stock market is still at an all-time high. If we were on the brink of nuclear holocaust, it would not be like that. So there's a lot more business-minded people here that I think are in the right fold. I feel we're going to be okay. I wouldn't want to be in Guam right now because he may pull some stupid stunt. But I feel that let's see, the 21st. They're going to play this. They're going to play this thing out till like the middle of September, and I really think something else happens that throws him under the bus. And I don't know whether it's China being supported or some of the other countries that are closer. His show of strength is he wants to show. He wants to be. He's a bad guy in any James Bond film. There's always some person like this, but I don't think we know he's not thinking properly or thinking normally, but he never did. The family never did. So I think we're going to be okay through the middle of September, and then there's a shift. And I'm not feeling a real bad shift. I'm really not. We're still going to have our freedoms. Balance comes back into fold. And believe me, this sounds really stupid, but harmony returns. Now, how this all falls through by the middle of September, I'm not sure, but that's what I'm feeling at this time.
Harmony in the middle of September.
Mm-hmm.
Or by the middle of September.
Balance. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So... yeah, I'm not. I watch it, but like I say, for some reason, I don't know how that country exists when all these people are involved with military. I find that. I know we've got.
Well, they're not exactly driving Cadillacs,
No, and they're not. And if they're not in the military, they're starving. So, but I find it. I find it a little bit. I'm not thinking of a. I'm not thinking of a coup that takes over in that situation because he's got it so well established. But my personal feeling is there's going to be some harmony in the fall of this year, And I'm going with the people in the stock market where the things just is riding up good. I mean, I just don't understand how when we have all this stuff out there that it's just like, whoa. And the markets, the futures for tomorrow are up like 50 points. And those are the markets that are in the Middle East. So it's like, okay, that's interesting. But he realizes I don't think he's not going to call Trump's bluff.
Right, well, I also think that what I look at it is the United States has had, 50 years, 60 years of experience and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars being poured down into anti-missile defenses. And these guys, within the last 10 years, developed a bomb that was almost not sure it was a bomb because of the yield was so low. And now all of a sudden they're going to send intercontinental ballistic missiles, which are probably one of the most complicated things to make. It's probably more complicated than a bomb. And they all did this in 10 years. It sounds a little ridiculous. And if they did shoot something, and if the West couldn't shoot it down, it's like, where'd all that money go? You know?
Well, and that's the other thing. One thing I would really like to know is how much money has, hang on a second, I'm going to dry throat here. How much money have we given to North Korea in the last 50 years? I would love to know that. I mean, we've supported different things all over the world with different indirect and indirectly about giving money to everybody. I would really like to know how much money has been given to North Korea, even in the last 12 years. And it would be very interesting to know that. And they were buying him off not to be a bad boy. Now he's becoming a bad boy. And it's just like, okay, that's interesting. So our money definitely did not work. And we're in a situation that he thinks he can have world dominance. So North Korea is a tiny speck on the face of the earth. I mean, it's not big. I don't think it's bigger than Texas in size-wise. And how does he think he's going to pull this off? You know, it's just kind of mind-boggling. But he is a little bit crazy, and but I don't think he's going to call Trump's bluff. I think he's got there's a lot to be done.
All right, now you mentioned I'm kind of pushing along here. You mentioned about Harmony coming, but as you saw, we're having the Antifa, Black Lives Matters stuff happening, and yet in a month you're talking about Harmony or coming. So is that going to tone down?
Well, no. Well, the thing I'm talking about is North Korea.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking with that. We still have these, like I say, we've got these young students who are screwy. And people, this is orchestrated by some negative forces here in this country and around the world, besides Kim Jong-un or whatever his name is. But all this stuff that gets me, that really, I mean, I know people have cameras and they can record anything all the time and whatnot. I'd like to know, when we have all these riots, if I was downtown and I was at the Chicago Theater, and let's say in Greektown, there was a riot going on, I wouldn't have any idea there was a riot going on unless the media is there to take photographs of it, and let the people act really stupid while they're being photographed. So I think a lot of this is perpetrated by the press knowing where all this stuff is going to happen, and they're given awareness through somebody. I can't say who it is, but that just doesn't happen. You know, everybody has a camera phone now, so I see those cameras being filmed everywhere. But to gather all these people in one location at the same time, I can't get my family to come over for dinner at the same time.
Yeah, well, it is planned. Soros is behind a lot of this. They've traced some of that money to Soros and so on.
Without a question of a doubt. And it's bringing these two people together. Like I said, if you're on State Street and you're walking down State Street and people are fighting on Michigan Avenue, you don't know what's going on. I mean, to have all this stuff so well orchestrated and brought together at the right time when everybody's there. Nothing else was, I mean, they were having this thing about the flag and the statue and all that stuff. But we had the riots in Chicago, and they were taken care of. And they were filmed, but that was true. They were filmed because all the photographers were there because of the convention. Here you got a little town in Georgia or South Carolina, and people are just doing their own business, and all of a sudden there's a big battle going on. What went away? How come one group wasn't there at 10 o'clock in the morning and the other group was there at 12:30 in the afternoon? They got there at the same time. And so those are things we got to pay attention to. We got to pay attention how the bluebird of happiness would tell you to turn off the news, but we've got to be aware. We do. I'm not. I try not to be impressed by any of the wheelings and dealings with this, but you do have to be aware. And in order for your own protection and protection of our loved ones, we have to be aware of what's going on. But again, right now, I know we got ships and we got airplanes and everything in that area. It would take a month and a half for an aircraft carrier to get to the China Sea. How did all these aircraft carriers get there right now at this time?
Well, they've been on their way. They've been going there over. You know, they had trouble with China. I don't mean. I'm not saying China's the problem. There was trouble with China in the South China Sea, and the U.S. was there doing war games. And then South Korea thought that perhaps they were getting ready to. But I got to kind of stop this at this point. I want to get to whatever you say might be coming. Look out for this or any other thing, because I have to play yet another piece before I go.
Okay, real quick. I think we're not done with issues in England and France. I'm very worried about either one of those places. Don't go on vacation to France or England. Try not to do that. Please, Jim, promise me you're not going to France. And the other thing is the global warming. I don't know, but we've already had some really weird floodings. But we're going to have the hurricane season is going to be a real stinker, September and October. So just if you're thinking about a trip to Florida, hopefully you'll try to avoid those times. And I think right now I can't say you can't. We're in Illinois. We got Rauner and the state capitol getting nothing done. Unfortunately, we've got the same thing in Washington. So I wish I could say he's going to accomplish this and this. He's going to accomplish it, but it's going to take time, and he doesn't like that dragging all this crap out. So it's a real issue we have to think about. But England and France, stay away from, and any place that might have a tendency for flooding, like from a hurricane and stuff, be careful out there, folks. Jim, I'll see you next month.
Okay.
Talk to you later.
Take care. Bye. All right, there we go, Jim Shultz. One of the things people might be wondering is like, well, you're doing this news stuff, and then you're having a psychic on. I have a lot of sides to me. I have a lot of things I'm interested in, I'm open for, and so on. I do use logic and science and metaphysics and all that together, and so sometimes it's also good to chat with somebody. You can put these things out there above and beyond the psychic exploit. So let's go to Less Visible and see what he has for this week.
Hello! Greetings, and welcome to Dog Poet Transmitting. Welcome to the Saucer Pod, and greetings from the Arcturian Brotherhood and the Sirius Cluster. Good day, my friends. Hopefully I am not too far off this morning, though it will be later in the day for many of you, and perhaps even this evening or another day entirely. I did not sleep last night. It happens at least once a month, and so it happened last night. And I'm so used to it by now that often I don't realize that I haven't slept. I don't know what causes it, but it's a regular feature in my life. Today I wrote about the sun at Visible Origami. I wanted to tell the reader that whenever you get depressed or overwhelmed by life, confused or consumed by doubt, why, just walk outside and greet the sun. It will change your mood. Think of the power and force of it, what it does with shadows in the dark. Think about how there is no life on Earth without the sun, and no light in the moon, and how that reflected light is what we should emulate as we express the reflected light of the ineffable, the primary source of light and love. For we are light in extension. We are sunlight, frozen in form. There is no more positive expression on the planet than the sun. Sometimes in altered states, I would see angels flying in a spiral out of the sun. I thought everyone was seeing what I was seeing, but I was wrong. Some people just weren't open to the spiritual side of things, and the hippie experience was more about sex and the sensory plane than the doors of perception. Every psychedelic experience I had, well, I'm sure just almost all of them, was about the ineffable. And I would go off into the woods and sing up the trunks of trees, and then off into the leaves. Each tree was a musical expression. It seemed like there was music in everything, and you could sing the form and the shape of it. The goddess would appear. Throughout the natural world, I would see her smiling through the foliage at me, and resident in the meadows and under the trees, and there were holographic green Buddhas everywhere, especially in the foliage and especially at night. There were huge serpents everywhere curling in and out of the earth, and there were fiery hieroglyphics written in everything. It was some magical language of vibration that was the integrity, the essential integrity of every object. I could see the letters in my hands, and my whole form was silhouetted by this outline, this electric green outline, about half an inch wide. Oh, those were the days. It's funny remembering all of that now, remembering how I feel too, and lost the ability to see these things. Finally, after this long, strange road that I've been on, it's all coming back again. Well, there's another revolution in consciousness coming, an awakening, if you will. For some, it is about the fascism of social justice warriorhood, or politics, or technology, or whatever it is that attracts a person who's in the dream theater of the absurd. For me, it is the ineffable. And gradually, everything else is fading away into nothingness, the very nothingness from which it came. Only the real remains, and that is the ineffable. Oh yeah. One day it will be the ineffable alone, and I won't mind even a little bit. This is the direction I have chosen, or that which has been chosen for me by that part of myself which is stronger and more enduring than any other part. I recommend practicing the presence of God. Practice the presence of the ineffable. And, you know, as you do this, it becomes as if the ineffable were living his life through yours. If you can start to do it consciously at all times, a very unusual state of being comes about, where the ineffable, because the ineffable is real, the ineffable is alive in you. You have no life without the ineffable. Oh, yeah. And the ineffable then expresses through you, and there's something about that that touches all life external to yourself, because we all have this in common. You know, whether we admit it or not, whether we like it or not, whatever the case may be, there is no life without the ineffable. There's no light without the ineffable. It's funny remembering all of this now, remembering, yeah, all the things, all the things that I passed through on my way to this moment that I'm in. I got lost and found so many times. And for me now, recognizing that the ineffable is the origin of love, that the ineffable is the source of every good thing, that the ineffable are all those wonderful qualities that we see being expressed in some people who have found the connection to bring forth out of themselves these wonderful qualities. It's life-changing, not only just your own life, but everything you touch. And I'll tell you, to be able to lose yourself in the love of the ineffable is to be able to see your true image in the mirror of life. How wonderful is that? Is there anything in existence more profound or more beautiful, more meaningful and everlasting than the ineffable? No, there is not. I try to convey the joy of it, but I know I fall short. I'm dumbfounded all the time by the indifference of people to the shining light and unfathomable reservoir of love that is the divine endlessness. And the more you take of it, the more remains. God is such a wonder. Wonder upon wonder, opening into wonder. My goodness. I have on my desktop a picture of the goddess Lady Tara, Green Tara. You know, and I catch myself looking at her, and I know it's just an image, but I look into her eyes and I get the very real sensation that she is looking back at me. And of course, she is everywhere to be found, but unless you pursue the capacity to see, you'll never see. And what else is there to see? Because we see just this world all around us, you know, and how is it people do not see the majesty of the ineffable? They must be blind. And until your eyes are opened and your spiritual sight has been opened to the presence of the ineffable, you are blind and living in a world, personally, I left behind, fell into, and then left behind again, and will continue to leave it behind and leave it behind and leave it behind for as often as it appears to me. So many people are just running amok in a pursuit of appetites, and they just keep getting hungrier and hungrier until they consume themselves. It's a kind of, God is real. And if God is real, what else can matter? If God were not real, then nothing would matter, and that is the case with a lot of people. All that matters to them is the satisfaction of appetites. And as I said, they're always hungry and getting hungrier. Eventually, you eat yourself alive. It's a self-cannibalizing syndrome with a Sisyphean edge of futility. Running around and up and down a hill, running around in circles, going nowhere at the speed of thought, but the thought is linear and going nowhere. For myself, this is unacceptable. And I implore you, just because I know how much joy and bliss is there, to seek the ineffable. And never were there a better time for a long, long time to seek the ineffable than now. All right, my friends, come to the end of yet another broadcast, and I'll see you next week if there is one. In the meantime, if you feel lost or confused, out of your depth, take a walk outside and have a talk with the sun. Let the radiance of its hidden mystery flow over you and into you, and you will not be depressed any longer. That said, hail Lord Jesus Christ. Om Amitabha. Greetings, my dear friend, Lord Ganesh. Hare Krishna. No. Micham Anbu Guru Bawa. Bismillah Irrahman Irrahim. Much love, Lady Nature. Carry on, Baha'u'llah. Aloha and may the grace of the ineffable descend upon you, arise from within you, and consume your existence in the endless, love-drenched wonderland of the ineffable. God bless you, one and all.